Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to have you all here for our virtual action event for Joyce the Elephant. We're going to get started in just a minute or so. We'll give time for all the people in the waiting room to start entering the webinar room. So we'll give a little bit of time for folks to join us. As you're joining, please let us know in the chat who you are, where you're based. We're really excited to have you all here. Really excited to go through some of the information about who Joyce the Elephant is, what our campaign is about, as well as share our new toolkit and actions. So please let us know in the chat, and really looking forward to engaging with you all on this session. Great. It looks like we're reaching kind of a stasis in where we're at with attendees. So for anyone who's just joining, thank you very much for joining our virtual action event for Joyce. As you'll see in the chat, people are starting to post about who they are and where they're joining us from. Really exciting to have a good mix of folks from around the US, some folks from outside the US. Looks like France and the UK are represented here. So very exciting to have such a great mix of folks, and really looking forward to a really great session. So just a really quick overview of the agenda. I am Cameron Harsh. I'm the U.S. Director of Programs at World Animal Protection. We will cover off a little bit about Joyce's story, who she is, what her background is, as well as share a short clip from the short documentary film that we made. We'll then have a quick Q&A with the maker of that film, Miguel Endara, our programs manager on the campaigns team here at World Animal Protection US. And then we'll pivot to introducing the new campaign toolkit, featuring a lot of actions for people around the US, around the world, and those in New Jersey specifically to take action for Joyce. And our wildlife campaign manager, Nicole Barrantes, will walk us through that toolkit and some actions that we can all take together this afternoon. And we'll have space for questions and input from you all as well. So for those of you who may not yet be familiar with World Animal Protection, welcome to this webinar. Really glad to have you on. We used to be known as World Society for the Protection of Animals, or WISPA, until 2014. And we are in fact celebrating our 75th year anniversary this year. We've been active in some form or iteration since 1950. And our work focuses on animals in farming and animals in the wild, and ending the systems that exploit them. So our mission is to move the world to protect animals, and our vision is a world where animals live free from suffering. So shifting to Joyce, who is the focus of our webinar and the focus of our campaign. Who is Joyce? She was an elephant born in Zimbabwe, and she was among 63 orphaned elephant calves who were transported from Zimbabwe to Florida in 1984. Her family was killed in the government culls of elephant populations in Zimbabwe at that time. And a wealthy individual named Arthur Jones came into Zimbabwe and transported 63 elephants to his home in Florida with the intention of keeping them in his home and cared for by him and his wife. So for those of you who are familiar with our work and have been following us for a while, you may remember Mundi, who was one of the other orphaned baby elephants brought to the US by Arthur Jones. And she ended up at a zoo in Puerto Rico that then was closed down several years ago. She and the other animals lacked access to veterinary care and to resources, and World Animal Protection helped ensure that she had a safe new home at the Elephant Refuge North America in Georgia, where she is thriving today. So our work to help bring Mundi to Georgia, to Sanctuary, brought us awareness of who Joyce is and the fact that since 1984, she's been traded around the US in several circuses, zoos, and amusement parks. She performed in circuses for more than 15 years. And she even performed at the Carden Circus, which is one of the most notorious circuses in the US. And she was forced to dance, balance on a tub, a lot of those typical elephant amusement circus performances that we have seen many times. Since 2010, she has been at the Wild Safari, which is one of the theme parks within Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey. During the months when the park is open, there's the rumble of roller coasters, a lot of visitors going through. Visitors today now go through in big safari trucks with a guide, but it used to be a drive-through adventure park in which people could drive their personal vehicles in and around. And she's part of an outdoor enclosure that is just 3 acres. In the winter months, as you'll see in that satellite image in the bottom of this, the elephants are kept in a barn because they are not suited to the cold New Jersey winters. And they are kept together as 5 elephants in a very small area indoors all winter long. The wild safari itself boasts having about 1,200 animals from across 6 continents, including elephants, rhinos, big cats, zebras, a lot of different animals from different environments, all confined in this one adventure park. The elephant enclosure is less than a mile from the big rumbling roller coasters, and there are 5 elephants currently sharing that space, a small barren enclosure in the summer months and a tiny barn in the winter. So our campaign, we are hoping to push Six Flags to release Joyce immediately to Sanctuary and close its elephant exhibit for good, because elephants do not belong in captivity, particularly in an adventure park. They are not amusement attractions for visitors to Six Flags. So we did send 4 letters to Six Flags in the span of about a year, giving information to the leadership team at Great Adventure Park and Six Flags corporate about how elephants suffer in captivity, they do not belong in captivity, and information about the sanctuaries in the US who have the capacity to care for elephants, as well as raising specific concern for Joyce's history, the trauma that she experienced, and really noting the importance of giving Joyce a space in which she can thrive and get the care in which she needs. So we launched our campaign publicly for World Elephant Day last year on August 12th, which really centered on the short film that we're about to see a clip from and speak to Miguel about. And we launched our petition to Six Flags, asking them to release Joyce and the other elephants to sanctuaries immediately. We have so far collected over 25,000 of our 100,000 signature goal. And as you see in the chat, if you have not yet watched the full film or you've not yet signed our petition, there's a link in the chat to do both of those if you are inclined. So next we will show a short clip from the film that we made and launched for World Elephant Day last year. And then we will have an opportunity to ask some questions of the filmmaker, Miguel.
Today we are joined by animal welfare expert and veterinarian Dr. Jan Schmidt-Burbach as he investigates Joyce's current habitat.
So it's really weird to be so close to roller coasters when you're about to see wild animals, but I guess that's the concept here.
With over 15 years of dedicated research experience in the field of elephant welfare, Dr. Schmidt-Burbach hopes to determine if Six Flags is a suitable home for Joyce.
I'm quite excited to see Joyce now after hearing and learning so much about her, and we're just about to get on the tour and see what her conditions are like.
Because the park has declined a request to meet with Joyce to give a proper assessment of her health and well-being, Dr. Schmidt-Burbach will instead be visiting the park today as a tourist.
So we won't be able to get close to Joyce, so I can't fully assess her properly, but we hope to be able to see her enclosure and the conditions so we get a good feeling for what conditions she's facing day to day over here at Six Flags.
The park contains approximately 1,200 wild animals from 6 different continents, ranging from the American bison and elk to the African rhino, tiger, and giraffe.
Coming up on our left will be our African elephants.
As they approach the elephant enclosure, Dr. Schmidt-Burbach looks for Joyce.
And an elephant can have up to 100,000 muscles in their trunks alone. And that allows them to pick things up as big as a tree trunk or even as small as a penny. So their trunks are really useful tools for elephants.
Which of those elephants is Joyce?
Joyce is in house right now, I believe.
Separated from the other elephants, Joyce can now only be seen from a distance through the trees.
The elephant enclosure was a lot smaller than expected and quite barren as well. Very little things to do for the elephants, really.
To determine the exact size of the elephant enclosure, Dr. Schmidt-Burbach begins mapping out its exact dimensions using Google Earth.
So now the outline of the enclosure shows me that the area is roughly 3.6 acres in size for the 3 elephants. What we learned during our visit, though, is that Joyce isn't part of those 3 elephants. We saw Joyce in what appeared to be a relatively small area beside the barn. So now I'm measuring the enclosure that we saw Joyce in, and that's about 1.1 acres. That's approximately 700,000 times less than what an African elephant would have as an annual home range in the wild.
To make matters worse, Joyce has moved into the small barn with at least 4 other elephants during the winter months, further restricting her already limited space and natural roaming behaviour.
The enclosure that Joyce is in is obviously really small, but what concerns me in addition here is the proximity to the roller coasters, and that's quite unique here to that location.
The safari park is located directly adjacent to the theme park, which is home to some of the fastest, tallest and longest roller coasters in the world. But given that elephants have the unique ability to detect vibrations through the ground, Dr. Schmidt-Burbach is concerned that the constant running of the roller coasters throughout the day may cause them stress.
We know that elephants are very sensitive to vibration. They can detect vibrations over miles. So I'm quite concerned what the impact might be here through the proximity of those roller coasters for the elephants.
Because of these concerns, Dr. Schmidt-Burbach advises that Six Flags relocate Joyce one last time.
I would really hope that Six Flags would consider a different alternative for Joyce, where she could actually spend a life worth living in one of the 3 elephant sanctuaries in the US.
Cool. Well, hopefully you all enjoyed that clip, and certainly encourage you to go to the link that Mackenzie shared in the chat and watch the full documentary about Joyce. It's a very powerful story, including more about her background and more about the future opportunity we hope for Joyce. So we have Miguel Endara, our programs manager, available to answer any questions that you might have for him in terms of filmmaking for animals, the project that he works on for Joyce, as well as any other questions you might have. So as Mackenzie noted, feel free to use the Q&A function in the chat, and I'll kind of moderate the questions and pass them along to Miguel. And we have a few minutes to chat with Miguel. So first and foremost, Miguel, I'd love to hear one of the questions being, how did the park allow you to film inside? How did you get that content inside the park? Were they suspicious of you at all?
Sure. Just first off, thank you everyone for joining us on this, virtual action event. Very happy to see everybody here. So yeah, I think I filmed inside the safari park using an iPhone. So and I just kind of connected that to like a wireless mic, and we kind of put that in Dr. Jan's jacket, just hit it there. So it was kind of really easy. This setup just allowed us to carry on as tourists without raising any suspicions. I think a few of the staff of the park at some point asked why we were filming, and I mean, just out of curiosity probably, but we just kind of answered that we were like vloggers from Europe and had never seen an elephant, and we were just very excited, and they were like, "Oh, cool, just carry on," kind of thing. So yeah, it was not a big deal at all, and I think that's true for almost every project that I've ever been involved in, as it pertains to animal advocacy, which is just pretend you're a dumb tourist who knows nothing, and you can pretty much get away with anything.
Yeah, very, very interesting, Miguel, and definitely great to have such a depth of knowledge from your experience as a filmmaker, particularly kind of doing clandestine sort of undercover type of footage. Maybe a broader question for you coming in. As a filmmaker, what key objectives do you prioritize when you're working on stories about animals and conveying an animal story?
Well, I mean, as everyone here can imagine every animal is unique in their own way. So I suppose the key is to kind of highlight their story as if it was one of us in that situation. Highlighting their history, their relationships, emotional depth, and then kind of reminding viewers that these animals are sentient, and then maybe even explain like what that means, the value of sentience, and how it relates to all animals, including humans. Um, I think that kind of makes it easier for viewers to connect with them on a personal level. And this is for animals that are confined in zoos, safari parks, like in the case of Joyce, and even parts in industries that we see them being used as commodities, right? Like animals who are farmed for food. As an example, I mean, each of their experiences deserve to be seen, and understood, and in many ways even respected. So I think all of this kind of just sparks empathy in the viewer, and I think that's all that I'm trying to do in every story that I tell, I suppose.
Yeah, that makes sense, and really transitions well to the next question, which is, as a filmmaker telling the story of animals, you're behind the camera. So what is the feeling when you're kind of an observer in that sense? And do you ever wish that you could say or do something, to really help the animal whose story you're telling, or do something differently?
Oh yeah. Every time. I think every time I'm behind the camera, um, there's always a moment when I feel powerless. And this is probably the hardest part of my job, of course. When I'm witnessing animals in clear distress and I can't help them out, um, that really stings. But the ethical guidelines of filmmaking, as it pertains to animal advocacy, kind of prohibits that, discourages any kind of intervention in any way. Um, and it's for the purposes of the greater good, I suppose. I don't like it, but I do respect that kind of philosophy. I know that, any attempt to, I guess, help an animal who is being exploited in front of me, will just result in a failed attempt. Because what can I really do in those situations? Like, how much power do I actually have? And the best example of this would probably be that time, spent filming a cow who was being slaughtered for meat. Like every part of me wanted to stop those people from hurting that cow, but I know that I would have just been kicked out and the cow would have died anyways. And the story that I'm telling of the meat industry wouldn't be complete. So it would not have accomplished anything, including saving the animal. So I think the stance can be really challenging, but I try to remind myself that this is for everyone to see the reality of the situation. And if I'm not capturing it and instead helping an animal, then I do a disservice to the next animal who would be exploited in the same way. So the goal, I suppose, would be to just simply raise awareness and inspire change in any way that I can.
Yeah, definitely powerful. So one last question for you. What's something that you really hope viewers take away when they watch this film about Joyce?
Well, I hope they sign a petition, which is what we all hope for, and to be more active. I want people to, in one way or another, be angry. I think it's okay to be angry. Some people are afraid of being angry, but I think we need to be. I think that would motivate us to push forward um, and kind of raise more awareness, speak to your family, speak to your friends, tell them what's going on. If you live in New Jersey, even better, be even louder if you can. Write to the park owners, speak with them if you can, and if you can figure out a way, speak with them and ask them to release Joyce to a sanctuary, and any of the other animals that they can do as well. I think I saw a question here earlier about what about the other elephants? Like, why don't we release them as well? I mean, that would be amazing as well. I think it would just be a matter of them agreeing to that. And then the next problem we would have, which would be a good problem, would be, which sanctuary would take them. And that's, like I said, a good problem to have. But I think just being more active, being loud, being angry, signing petitions, raising awareness. That's the kind of thing I hope for when people watch this short video.
Thanks, Miguel. Really, really appreciate your insights on this and your work on this project. And before we shift over to the campaign toolkit, yeah, definitely a lot of great compassion coming through in the chat and a lot of people wanting to know kind of the answer to these two questions. So I'm happy to speak to that briefly. And then I'll turn it over to Nicole. But the question of kind of why Joyce? Joyce is an elephant who we learned about because of, as I mentioned, her connection to Mundi and being part of this group of orphans that came over from Zimbabwe via Arthur Jones. And we learned about her history in the US, traveling between zoos, between circuses, really just kind of thrown around the US in a variety of amusement attractions, and found her story very compelling. So we wanted to focus that storytelling on Joyce. But we have been very clear with Six Flags in our letters, and it is involved in our petition too, that we want Six Flags to release Joyce to a sanctuary immediately and look to release the other elephants and close the elephant exhibit entirely, so that all of those elephants can similarly thrive and have the lives they deserve in sanctuary. We've also been clear with them in our letters that the next escalation of this is to address the wild safari as an amusement park. None of those animals should be in this attraction. None of these animals should be in this situation. And to really encourage Six Flags to start to phase out the safari park entirely and switch to a different model. Animal amusement is not the way for a theme park to make money. So that is definitely part of our engagement with Six Flags, but seemingly wanting to start with something very tangible and accessible to the leadership team, free Joyce now, and then escalate them along the road to having no captive animal attractions at this theme park. In terms of the sanctuary where Joyce could go, there are 3 sanctuaries in the US who have the capacity, resources, and expertise to care for animals. If Six Flags were to care for elephants, if Six Flags were to release Joyce or any of the other elephants, World Animal Protection would step in and help facilitate the transfer of those elephants to whichever sanctuary was at that time available to join that initiative and bring those elephants to their care. So that's something that we would determine, and World Animal Protection would proactively help facilitate when we get to that stage. But we've spoken to all 3 sanctuaries just to learn more information, just sensing and scoping. So yeah, really appreciate all these questions. Continue to use the Q&A and the chat function. And I will turn it over to Nicole so we can start taking actions. Thanks again, Miguel.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Nicole Barrantes and I'm the Wildlife Campaign Manager here at World Animal Protection US. And I don't think it was mentioned before, but fun fact, the documentary that we all just heard, the female narrator is an actress from Harry Potter, Ivana Lynch. She's one of our ambassadors. So encourage you to go back and watch the full documentary with that in mind. So yeah, I'm here to introduce our activist toolkit, which is very exciting, and we are very happy creating it for all of you. So why a toolkit? We wanted to create a go-to guide with a range of actions. There's 10 actions in the toolkit, 14 including the actions for New Jersey residents. So Mackenzie just put the link to the activist toolkit in the chat. So out of those 10 to 14 actions, you can take which ones resonate with you the most or feel most impactful for you. There's, of course, the first one's like signing the petition. You could take our click to email action. I'm going to walk through 2 actions from the toolkit, but there's a bunch of different variety of there. Even if you have an idea for the campaign, there's a bullet point where you could send us your idea on how we can free Joyce. And the cool thing is you can do this on your own time, so you don't need to wait on alerts from us, because I know many actions that we run is if you're on our email list, but this is, you just do it whenever you want. And it's also great because with all these actions, Six Flags will be getting your notifications, whether it's through the click to email action or the customer complaint form, which we'll walk through shortly. So that's really good because we need that pressure continuous pressure, that people power from all of you, from all of us to free Joyce. So we will, next slide is, we're going to walk through one of the forms, one of the actions, I mean. So this is an exciting one that it's my personal favorite because I just stumbled upon it when I was brainstorming how can we free Joyce. So Six Flags has a contact us page where you can send them an electric note. So we're going to walk through this. Feel free to have this page open. So like after the webinar, you could submit your quote complaint. I mean, no, not quote. It is a complaint. We want to free Joyce. So Cameron's going to share their screen for us. There, yeah, it's working. Yay. Great. So you go to the contact us form. You will scroll down to send us a note electronically. And first, it's going to ask you to choose the location of the park. So you will scroll down to Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. So they are clicking that. It will go into how can we help. So you will go down to where it says ride, shows, and events. And answering the question in the chat, it's Ivana Lynch is the actress in the documentary. So after you click ride, shows, and events, the next is attractions, and you will click ride, comment, / complaint. Scroll down, and you will fill in your information. So first name, as Cameron's doing, last name, your email address, if you'd like your phone number as well, and then your message to Six Flags. So if you don't know what to write, back into the toolkit, which you'll see there's going to be a list of talking points. Oh, great, Cameron, so perfect. Scroll down and there'll be talking points there that you can take reference, so you can write from whatever you'd like. But essentially you want to make that axe to free Joyce and the other 5 elephants, close down the elephant exhibit, and send them to Sanctuary. So that is the first action. So highly encourage you all after the webinar to keep this page open and submit. That way, Six Flags can get, let's say there's 58 people here, 58 submissions just in this afternoon. So yeah, Cameron, oh yeah, how would you describe, oh, sorry, I forgot to finish this part. How would you describe your message, complaint, and then you would just click submit. I think maybe if you scroll, yeah, there we go. So there you got the confirmation, and there's other ways that you could reach out to Six Flags too that we included in the toolkit, which is so that's one action that you can take. And then the next action, is waiting for the slide, is to post on social media with our graphic. So our great digital marketing manager Soren put together this graphic with Joyce and our campaign messaging. And if you're on Instagram, Facebook, you can post this as a story or on your grid, and we have some sample text for you there. Use the hashtag free Joyce, and our social media team can repost that and retag. And so that way Six Flags is getting the pressure online. They're getting it through their website portal. They're getting, if you're sending them a letter, they're getting physical pressure, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, those are 2 ways of how you can get involved. And if you have any other questions, just drop them in the chat related to the toolkit and we'll be happy to answer them. So yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks so much, Nicole. Really appreciate that walkthrough. Just looking through the chat, it looks like there's some questions about accessing the toolkit. So Mackenzie's been dropping that link. In that toolkit, you'll find those talking points that were referenced, as well as other ways to take action, and link to the social media graphics. In terms of social media, make sure we're using that at SFG our adventure handle, and we can take that on. So really appreciate everybody's participation, and really hope that you all find the toolkit user-friendly, and take those actions on your own time and kind of choose your own adventure, as Nicole said. So what's next? We will have plenty of time to field additional questions from you all, and we'll turn to that in just a moment. But really just really relying on you all to continue to take actions with us for our campaign, use the toolkit as you're able, even repeat some of those actions multiple times. We really want Six Flags to feel the pressure from across the US and across the world that keeping Joyce and the other elephants in captivity as part of an amusement park attraction is just unacceptable, and they deserve a life in sanctuary. Share the toolkit with your family, friends, and communities. Share the film. There's the link in the chat to the landing page with the film, which is also in our YouTube channel. As Nicole mentioned, that was narrated by the great Ivana Lynch, who is one of our global celebrity ambassadors. Also consider making a donation to the campaign. It is our March match initiative. So now through March 31st, all gifts will be matched, which is a great opportunity as well. Also wanted to give everyone a sneak peek of what's coming in 2025. So this campaign toolkit is being launched now and will be made widely available so that folks can continue to take actions from that. We also, later in the year, will continue to do documentary trips to the park in New Jersey to uncover more about the elephants' conditions and the impacts on them from the park. Mark your calendars for August 12th, which is, again, World Elephant Day. This year, it'll be the 1-year anniversary since launching our petition. So we're looking to do some big activities that day to really amplify our campaign. And we also will continue taking Joyce's story global. Our Australia and New Zealand offices are circulating petitions of their own, getting supporters to sign on to the call for Six Flags to release Joyce and the other elephants, and other country offices for World Animal Protection will be joining as well. So we can make this a global movement to free Joyce, free the other elephants at Six Flags, and also broaden the call for ending elephant captivity and wild animal captivity writ large for entertainment and attractions. So yeah, continuing to make this a global movement to protect wild animals from exploitation. So with that, I will invite Nicole and Miguel to turn their cameras back on and open it up to any additional questions that have come up. And yeah, any questions that we can field from the chat, or again, there's the Q&A function as well.
I just want to make clarification because I was initially wrong in when I was responding to a supporter in the chat. You can characterize your message as a request at the bottom. I was just getting a little confused instead of a complaint. So you can do that as well when you're submitting your message. So thank you, Rebecca, for clarifying that.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. So one of the questions coming through in the Q&A box is there any action that we are able to take on a political level, for example, lobbying for laws to prevent amusement parks from displaying live animals? Certainly the political angle is something that we could pursue and are considering pursuing. We do know from our research, a kind of interesting component of this is, although there are several other venues and parks in New Jersey that have a license allowing them to exhibit elephants, Six Flags is the only one currently exhibiting any elephants. So part of this campaign can really help to secure potentially some state policy action that would ban elephant captivity in the state and make these 5 elephants the last captive elephants in New Jersey. That's certainly a great goal, and we've been doing some work to outreach some New Jersey policy stakeholders and some local New Jersey legislators as well. Anyone who's based in New Jersey certainly has a lot of power in this as a constituent, and part of what we've built out in the toolkit is ways to engage your local legislators with Joyce's story and this issue so that we can work on the policy level as well. A couple other questions coming through, just kind of perusing as they come up. There's a couple of questions related to, are you working with other animal advocacy organizations? Definitely. We cannot do this alone, and we're part of a broader movement. So we have discussed Joyce's story, the Six Flags issue, with a number of other animal advocacy organizations, including some local animal advocacy groups in New Jersey. Getting their insight, getting their advice, and hopefully being able to mobilize together at the right moments and at the right times. So really looking to build power and momentum and people power by August 12th of this year and really escalate the campaign. So yeah, I appreciate the questions on that as well. Looking through the questions. Interesting question related to the fact that the elephants are kept in the barn during winter, but thinking through what the other animals are experiencing during the winter and what their living situation is like. Miguel, perhaps as someone who has visited the park on this call, I know that's broader than elephants, but maybe there's something you could speak to, having seen the park visually, what it might be like for the other animals in winter as well.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't visit the park at all during the winter time, so I couldn't really see where they go. But from my understanding, talking to some of the staff members there are other animals that are who are also put into barns. I think giraffes also have some barns that they built for them for the winter season, as well as some of the big cats that they have there. But I don't think well, this is just me assuming that it's not possible to put all the animals in barns because I think they have something like 1,800 animals at the safari park. So I have to imagine the smaller animals that are there probably have to withstand the winter season, which obviously is not great. But I know for the vast majority of the big animals, they do also have enclosures like the elephants do.
Thanks, Miguel. Appreciate that. There's some comments in the chat I see coming through about contacting local press and getting local news attention on this. Nicole, maybe you can speak to that element of the toolkit. I think, Nicole, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. That's not happened for a long time, me going, not realizing I was on mute. Yeah, those for specifically New Jersey residents. So you can pull up the toolkit. I forgot what page it's on, but using our talking points, you could send an email to request that they cover a story on Joyce. So that's just another cool way for you to get involved.
Thanks, Nicole. A question just coming through in the chat too about permits for buying these animals and working on a law enforcement issue. That is a really great question. I think there's a couple of elements that I would speak to. One is that the Six Flags Wild Safari is a licensed wild animal exhibitor, which is under the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So they do regularly need to renew their license. And part of that licensing is which species and how many of each species they intend to exhibit. So African elephants are one of the species listed in that license. And for a very long time, all of their licenses, which we've gained access to via Freedom of Information Act requests, have had that number at 5 elephants. Their most recent license application renewal increased that number to 10 elephants. So the concern is that Six Flags is actually planning to put more elephants into this space. And so this is a really opportune time for us to intervene, make sure Six Flags knows that it's not okay for them to be keeping any elephants at all, much less doubling the number of elephants, which their license now allows. This park has had issues in the past with doing some of the things it was not permitted to do under its license, including breeding Siberian tigers when it was not permitted to do so. So it is clearly not a park that is necessarily obeying all of its license regulations, and it is licensed to do a couple of things, but we can continue to use that in terms of shedding some light on the nature of the park, their profit orientation rather than animal care orientation, and really continue to bring more scrutiny on the park. We also received in the Freedom of Information Act request that there have been some complaints in the past about the sea lions, their conditions and their habitats at this park as well. So that is on our radar after accessing that data as well. Excellent. I don't see additional questions coming through in the Q&A. Keeping up on the chat. Yeah, definitely as some more chatter about engaging with other organizations, we will continue to reach out and definitely rely on other people as well to help mobilize, get people power. And this is something that we won't be able to do alone. So we're going to need as many voices joining us as possible. So really appreciate the comments in the chat. Excellent. If no other questions are coming through, I just want to say thank you to Miguel and thank you to Nicole for joining this webinar, providing the expertise from your role here on the campaigns team. We will continue to provide links in the chat, and we will send those links in a follow-up email as well. So yeah, thank you all for participating. You will receive the recording of this webinar and links to the toolkit. Links to the resource that we provided in the chat, but certainly follow us on social media. And as I mentioned, it is our March Match campaign. So in particular, your donation would be doubled until March 31st. So that QR code will allow you to support the Joyce campaign with a donation if interested. So really appreciate your time, your interest in Joyce, your interest in this campaign, and really look forward to hearing about all the great actions that you'll be taking from the toolkit. Please share the film as well. We're trying to get as many people to see the film as possible and to sign that petition to boost our numbers as well. Yeah, I hope you all have a great rest of your Tuesday. Really appreciate your time, appreciate your care and compassion for Joyce, and appreciate all that you all do as well. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, everyone.